Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit interesting. I'm going to review with you some of this data that we have in front of me on this iPad, and this talks about the winners and losers within the luxury resale market, specifically handbags, but we'll also talk a little bit about watches and jewelry towards the end. So this data was compiled by Rebag, and if you're not familiar with Rebag, they are a luxury reseller, and they have this proprietary tool that they call Claire, and what they do is they consolidate all this data in the industry specifically related to the luxury resale market, and in their case, luxury handbags, and they start to sort of look for trends and patterns. And here they reported out 2 years worth of data. So this covers the time period of the pandemic and shopping habits of those who have been purchasing these items on the resale market. And it's really fascinating. So I was reading through this and then I thought, let me film this so that I can go through the data with all of you, because I thought this might be interesting for some of you as well. So what I'm going to focus on are the winners and losers, as I said. So what this means is there are clear winners in terms of specific design houses that have risen to the top in resale market value, and then there are other design houses that have fallen down towards the bottom. So I'm going to show you a graph here, or a chart, which I think is really interesting. So I'm going to try to get as close as possible. So as you can see at the very, very top in the unicorn status on the far right is Hermes all on its own. So this pretty much verifies, at least in the luxury resale market and probably also in the retail market, that Hermes is pretty much in a category all its own. And we know that Chanel has been striving to get to the Hermes level, but they're just in a different sphere. So Hermes standalone right there. And then you've got Louis Vuitton and Chanel. So here's a smattering of the other brands. You can see the grayed out names means that they were here in 2019, then 2020, and then climbing. So Chanel, as you can see, has basically steadily risen to the top of this chart. And it's interesting because for all three of those brands, Hermes, Chanel, and Louis Vuitton, they are known to do inventory management, if you will, to say it nicely. They are pretty strict with how much inventory they put out, and therefore it creates, pandemonium. It creates a frenzy and demand on the marketplace. And then also there are those price increases. Hermes, not as much, but they do price increases as well periodically. They prefer to call them price adjustments because sometimes, once in a while, Hermes prices will actually come down, believe it or not, whereas you will very rarely see that from Chanel or Louis Vuitton. But Chanel and Louis Vuitton, according to this data here, which we all know if you've been on my channel because I've been reporting out the recent price increases over the past couple of years. I won't read this whole thing, but basically it talks about how Chanel and Louis Vuitton have had 3 rounds of price increases in the last 2 years. It feels like more to me actually, but I guess it's been 3 in the past 2 years, which is still a lot. And then here, I'm going to read this part here. So Hermes handbags typically retain an average of 90% of their retail value. Okay. And then Louis Vuitton retains about 80% of their retail value. And then Chanel retains about 75% of their retail value. So I don't know if that is a surprise to you. I guess it also depends on the handbag. So we'll get to that at some point later in this video. We're going to talk about the specific items that have risen the most. So if we're talking about, for example, a Chanel Classic Flap, they probably are well above 100% retail value in mint condition on the resale market. We've seen that a lot on Fashionphile, Rebag, and other sites. So it really depends on the bag. Maybe the seasonal Chanel bags retain about 75% of their value, but the classics definitely are well above 100%. Same with Hermes, the Birkins, the Kellys, even the Mini Eveline, the garden parties, the picotins, the mini lindies. I mean, they're all pretty much going pretty aggressively above retail if they're in mint condition on the resale market. Louis Vuitton we'll get to in a minute, but there are some specific items that have jumped considerably, and we're going to talk about the pochette accessoire in a minute. But I want to talk about the up and coming new star here, and as you can see, this is Bottega Veneta. So once considered a loser, would now be considered a winner ever since Daniel Lee took over as the director. He has really revived this design house and is really speaking to Gen Z and millennial consumers with more of the larger weaving pattern and the chunky chains. It's more modernized. So just as an example, here in 2019, retention value was 28%. Then it climbed to 38% and is now about 50%. Still not great, but the trends show that the values are increasing, which is a good sign for the house. So let's move down here and continuing on with Bottega. Let me just zoom in. Okay, so the cassette belt bag, surprisingly, really high retail value, or excuse me, resale value. The twist bag, again, I'm surprised. Really good retention. The Jody, which I know is very popular, very trendy, very Instagrammable as well. The cassette, which has the chain. Oh my gosh, I felt this in person. The chain is so heavy. Not really practical for someone like me, but I can see that it's very eye-catching. It's kind of a pop. So that too also holds its value currently quite well on the resale market. And then there's the dumpling, or the chain pouch. You see that here. Also very, very popular. A lot of influencers have that bag. So we'll see if that comes down a bit, because right now these items are hot. I do consider these items all very trendy, not necessarily classics. If you do move down, historically, some of the other styles from Bottega that they're known for that have that classic weave pattern, their retention value is pretty poor, hovering at about 31%. So I think I mentioned this a while back, maybe about a year or two ago, before Daniel Lee took, Bottega to these new heights. I said, if you're ever going to purchase a Bottega bag, then get it on the resale market, because you can get it for at least like half off. But maybe that's changing with some of these new designs. So we'll see. This is something to watch, right? If you're a Bottega fan, or if you've been considering adding a Bottega Veneta bag to your collection. So here, I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I do want to go over here because it's interesting. So on Rebag's site in particular, it looks like these three bags are going for a decent retention price, meaning 90% of retail, 87% of retail, and 80% of retail. Probably all have to be in pretty decent condition, but again, these are the bags that are quite popular at the moment. And then let's move on to Chanel. Okay. So this is not going to be a surprise, but the 19 bag, which is fairly new but has become a new classic in the Chanel lineup, is holding its value really well. To me personally, this is a trendy bag, even though they introduced it into the classics now and it's going to be part of their permanent line. I just feel like it looks quite trendy and it's a fashion statement, so I don't know how long this is going to last for them, but we'll see, right? So yeah, right now the 19 flap is doing really well. If you own the 19 flap, then you're probably happy to see this. The Coco top handle bags also doing well. The classic flaps. So I'm actually surprised to see that the Coco top handles are doing better on the resale market than the classic flaps. I don't know if that means that the classic flaps are selling better retail versus resale, because remember, keep in mind, all this data is with regards to the resale market. So there you go. And then you've got the Deauville tote. And then you've got, they're calling it the single flaps, but they're the minis. So we all know the minis have gone up a crazy amount. So this mini rectangle and mini square, they've both gone up on the resale market. And especially if you have one that is in caviar, because they discontinued these in caviar, or they just stopped making them for a while. Who knows if they'll bring them back. The caviar ones in excellent condition are definitely above retail. So I guess it depends on which leather it is. But I feel like in general with the mini bag trends, the classic minis have gone up considerably, and it'll be really hard to find them on the resale market in mint condition below retail. Okay, so here are the losers. I'm just saying winners and losers just to keep it kind of simple. Hopefully you get my point. So the boy bag, not doing as great. The Gabrielle, not so much. The maxi, the classic maxi, that's quite large. And with the mini bag trend these days, I can see why the maxi might have fallen down. It's a heavy bag. It's huge. It's even heavier than the jumbo, right? So that's going to be pretty big. The reissue, the 2.55. I wonder if that means all sizes. And then the vintage classic flap also fell. So maybe the vintage trend is also dying, because I know that vintage was hot. Still seems to be hot, but maybe it's starting to decline, and maybe consumers don't want the vintage vibe as much anymore. We'll see. Let me grab my vintage. I'll show you. Mine is 20 years old. So here's mine. I got this from Fashion File a couple years ago, and it is a 6 series, so true vintage. And yeah, vintage has such amazing quality and craftsmanship, but it also has a vintage look to it, even if it was well maintained. So I'm curious if the vintage trend is slowly going away now. What do you guys think? In the meantime, let's go down to here. And this is so cool. I love how they've collected all this data. You can tell I'm a geek for this stuff. So here, currently on Rebag, when you see a Deauville, let's assume in pretty decent condition, it's going to be about 95% of retail. The flap is 109% of retail, so that's above retail price. Not surprised given how hot this bag has been. And then again, the cocoa is 97% of retail. So pretty amazing retention value on these bags. And then let's go to Louis Vuitton. Okay, lots of chatter and talk around Louis Vuitton as always with the price increases and the quality issues, similar to Chanel actually. So let's talk about which bags are doing really well on the resale market. We've got the Eva clutch. We've got the Pochette Accessoire, not surprised. This one right here, I talked about this in my price increase video. Man, this has gone up so much, so much. What is it now, $1,050 US dollars? I think I got this for about 500 some odd dollars just about 2 years ago. So the price increases on this have been astronomical, and I could see why people are scrambling to find them on the resale market. But I think the resale market is also going to be, it's going to be hard to find decent prices because you can see here, they are retaining their value quite a bit on the resale market. Then you also have the Neverfull. Then you have the Felicie Pochette. And then you've got the Palm Springs backpack, which has also been very, very popular. All of these back up top here are retaining their values above retail, 125% and more. So isn't that crazy? Let's just pause and let that sink in. My goodness. Okay, and then you've got at the bottom of the chart, so you've got the Speedy, still retaining its value quite well, but not as well as the other items up top. The Artsy, the Galleria, the Alma, and I don't even know this bag here, the Samour. So yeah, fascinating stuff, right? I don't know, for me it is. Here, look at this. This is very telling. Pochette Accessoire, again, 143% above retail is what it's going for. This baby is still really sought after. My goodness. Then you've got the Eva, even more sought after, the Eva clutch. Wow. And then you've got the backpack at 114%. So the backpack trend seems to be going strong, or at least has been strong for the past 2 years when this data was collected. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens over the years, or even over the next 6 to 12 months. I'm going to go back to the main chart because I want to show you if you own some of the other brands, because I know we focused most on Hermes, Chanel, and Louis Vuitton, and then also on Bottega Veneta since it's up and coming. But let's just zoom in here. So for example, if you have Saint Laurent handbags, I have my Toy Lulu, which I love. I always say that Saint Laurent seems to be one of the most underrated design houses in the luxury industry. I don't know why. I love their items. I love their designs. I love their looks. But they're kind of like in the middle of the pack. You also have Christian Dior sort of in the middle of the pack. So here you go, which is interesting because if you don't know, Dior is owned by the same parent company as Louis Vuitton. They're both owned by LVMH. Then you've got Gucci here. You guys know I've been kind of interested in Gucci all over again. Gucci was my very first handbag many years ago, over 20 years ago. I recently let that bag go. It was basically vintage at that point when I let it go to one of my subbies. If you're watching, Jackie, I hope you're enjoying the bag. But I have been really getting intrigued with Gucci all over again ever since reading the book, The Gucci House. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will link it down below in my description box. It was so good. And now there's going to be a new movie coming out based on the book. Really interested. I ordered a pair of Gucci Brixton loafers recently. They haven't arrived yet. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been talking about comparing the Gucci loafers with the Sam Edelman loafers just to see, because I'm not really a loafers girl. And I just want to see if it's worth it for me. And I kind of want to see like the difference in design and comfort of each of those, since the price difference is pretty astronomical between the two. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. I will do a video with a full comparison review. But yeah, Gucci is like, I don't know, kind of piquing my interest again, but they're kind of, they're in the middle of the pack too. They're not like, they just seem to kind of be right where they were in the last 2 years, not a lot of movement. And then more towards the bottom, you have Balenciaga, which frankly I'm not a fan of, I never have been. Chloe, also not a fan. Prada, I feel like Prada would be climbing with all their re-editions, but I guess not, I don't know. Fendi, Valentino, all the way at the bottom. So look at this, Bottega was all the way down here below Valentino. And kudos to Daniel Lee and his team, because it's probably not easy to move the needle like that in just a matter of a year or two to get recognition, right? So yeah, that's the smattering. And Givenchy, as you saw, was at the bottom as well, towards the bottom. And I'm not surprised. This is my one Givenchy handbag, my mini Antigona, which I really adore, but I feel like Givenchy is not as talked about. It's not as... A lot of the handbags that come out just don't speak to me. This is the only one that ever caught my interest. So I can kind of understand. Okay, and then they are also predicting the value of watches and jewelry to go up. And here is a chart showing the last 2 years. And you've got VCA, Van Cleef & Arpels, up at the top, along with Rolex and Cartier. So those are the three, if you read this here, those are the three jewelry or watch brands that are standing at the top of the chart with the highest retention values. So for VCA, it's 95% of retail value. And then for Rolex, it's about 82% of retail. And then Cartier is about 74%. I'm sure that all depends on which pieces you have. I don't think that every single piece retains its value like this. And I'm sure there are pieces that are super, super classic and popular that are retaining their value even above 100%. So this is just the average. So I'll show you my one and only Cartier watch that I've had since my husband and I got married. It was a engagement gift from my parents, and I love this. I love this watch. It'll be the one and only watch. I always say the only watch I will ever want or need. Love it. And then I've got some Cartier jewelry, but I don't have the really popular like love ring or the love bracelet. I don't know, for some reason I'm just not interested. The screw design doesn't speak to me, but to each their own, right? Also, what's the other one that has the nail? I forgot what it's called. That too, not my cup of tea, but I know that's really popular. So if you own any Cartier jewelry or Rolex, I was going to dig out my husband's Rolex from his valet, but I was too lazy to do it. So I don't have it to show right now, but he never ever wears it. And a lot of times we talk about just selling it, but no, it's such a classic piece. And maybe when he gets older, he'll want to wear it, or we can pass it down to our son later on, especially with the prices going up so much. So he's just hanging on to it. There's another section of this report that talks about Tiffany's, and we all know that Tiffany's was acquired by LVMH, the same parent company of Louis Vuitton, as well as Dior and Sephora and so many others. A while back, I did a video talking about LVMH and my investment in LVMH because I am a shareholder. But Tiffany's, they are speculating that Tiffany jewelry will go up quite a bit. I don't know if the retail prices will go up, but they are also speculating that the resale values will go up. So if you have any jewelry or timepieces from these houses and for some reason you're not using them and you don't want them anymore, and you're sure you don't want them anymore, then now might be a good time to let them go, because you may be able to recoup your money back, or at least a large majority of your money back. For those of you who are on the market to buy something new, then just something to keep in mind, it seems like the prices are rising steadily. So here's the chart again, just to show you. I mean, obviously you can get timepieces and jewelry from other brands like Hermes, Omega. You've got even David Yurman on the chart here, Gucci. But you can see who the clear winners are based on the last 2 years. And then if you're really interested in Rolex, here are the specific watches. I don't even know the names of these watches. I don't know the name of my husband's watch, but I'll just hold this here so you can read it off in case you have a couple of Rolex watches that you are curious about. And then at the bottom of the chart, you've got here You've got the ones that are retaining their value a little bit less. Okay. Oh my gosh. And then here are the styles that are retaining their value well above 100% of retail price from Rolex. So here, pretty impressive. Yeah, I'm going to definitely tell my husband to hold on to his watch. And then here is Cartier. Here's some jewelry pieces. So again, the Love. Oh, the Justin Clou. Right. I couldn't remember the name of this one, the screw looking one, or the nail looking one. So yeah, these are retaining their value pretty well. Although I know for Cartier jewelry in general, they get scratched up and dinged up really fast, like after a couple of wears. So I don't know how you might feel about that, purchasing someone else's pre-worn jewelry that's scratched up, or if you don't care because it'll get scratched up anyway. So here you go. This is at the bottom of the chart. I don't think I've ever sold any jewelry. Almost all of my jewelry pieces are super sentimental to me, so I just can't imagine letting them go. Here are the winners, I guess, from Cartier. You've got the Justin Clou, 95% of retail. You've got the Love at 109%, and then you've got these earrings here. I think these are the Trinities. Yeah. And then that's it, basically. So I think it's really cool that Rebag has invested in this tool to gather all this data and report out. There's far more information in here, but we don't have time to go through it all, and I did touch on all the highlights. So I hope this was interesting. It was definitely interesting for me, and I wanted to share with all of you. Anytime I have any interesting information related to the luxury handbag market or luxury market in general, I love to just share out. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. In the comment section below, let me know what your thoughts are, any surprises, any questions. What are your views in general on the resale market? All right, I will talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.